Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to talk about funding your startup. How can you get money in order to increase the growth of your company, and where does that money come from? So here it is. This is where you can get the money from. There are many ways that you can get money depending on what sector your business in. So you can get it from friends and family, you can get it from grants, bank loans, angels, accelerators, incubators, crowdfunding, seed funds, venture capital, private equity, strategic investments, and public markets. So there's a lot of ways you can get money, and actually venture funding and angel funding has been increasing over the years. It's in billions of dollars. You just have to be in the right place at the right time. And we're going to talk in this video about the importance of raising funding at the right time. So do you have to raise money in order to grow your business and in order to even operate? The answer is no. A lot of companies can actually bootstrap your operations, and you can basically grow it step by step. Bootstrapping means, you're going to grab your startup, buy your bootstraps, and you're just going to, walk one step at a time, and you're going to use the money that you generate in order to put it back in the company and get it to a good point. Now, bootstrapping is a really good start for your company because it allows the investors to know that you're financially capable, and it gets you to a stage that you can have an MVP, a product that's used by thousands of users. So when you go to an investor, it's not very difficult to pitch your company because you can say, hey, my company has been operating for the past couple months. Look at my growth rate. I just need money to take it to the next level. So bootstraps are actually the way that I started majority of my companies. It's the way majority of the startups actually start if you look at the history. And you don't really get those million and billion dollar funding that you hear about unless you've reached a point where you need that money to take it to the next level, and investors are willing to put in that money. So two of the most popular websites that I can think about that have always been bootstrapped, that have never raised money, is Plenty of Fish, which is a dating website that was a free website, was able to generate some additional revenue from ads, from premium memberships, from premium features. Another website is Craigslist. So those two websites, I hope that you're familiar with them. And they all started bootstrap. Another thing is Thrillist, which is a really cool blog and a newsletter. They also started as being bootstrapped, and then eventually they raised funding. GitHub is another one. So you can think about all these different companies who started as bootstrap companies, and then they eventually reached a point where they had a lot of attention publicly and had a lot of customers that were able to raise additional funding and grow it from there. Now, why would you actually raise any money? Well, because of ambition. You want to grow your company. And most importantly, it's advice. Now, you've probably seen on Shark Tank sometimes when they come and they say, hey, we're looking for some funding, but we're not only here for the money, we're here for the team. Now, a good investor that you invite on your board and that you invite to own a piece of equity in your company probably has a lot of connections and has a lot of experience. So by engaging them in the company, yeah, they have to buy their way in with some cash, but by engaging them in the company, you're not only taking advantage of the money that they're bringing in, but you're also taking advantage of all the resources and the connections that they have, and you believe that that investor is going to help you take it to the next level in terms of opening doors, doing phone calls and meetings, and so on and so forth. Now, in order to raise money, there are different steps that you can accomplish. So if you take a look at the slide over here, if you're still in the idea and prototype stage, usually you try to raise funding from, I call them the 3 Fs, friends, families, and fools. Because at this stage, your product is at such an early stage that you don't need a lot of money. So basically people are investing because they believe in you, they believe in who you are, and they're trying to basically support your passion. Now you take it to the next level, and when you basically you launch the product, it is in the market, people like it, people are using it, people are demanding it, and you have satisfied that product market fit and have reached the go-to-market strategy. At that point, you can have seed money. Seed money is basically, could be angel money. You're looking at $100,000 to $1 million, maybe a bit more than $1 million. But after that stage, when you're ready to even take it even higher and higher and higher, and we're going to talk about different websites to use in order to see how other companies who have existed in the market for a while, how they reach Series A, Series B, Series C, and so on, and they basically raise more and more money until eventually you get to an IPO or an exit where someone buys you out, right? Like Facebook bought Oculus, Facebook bought Instagram, they got bought out, or you reached a stage of an IPO like GoPro did, and they launched their own shares and stocks on the market. So for you, one thing you have to understand is as you raise money, there's a concept of dilution, but you're increasing value. So every time you raise money, you are increasing the value of the company, but you're also being diluted. So if you're already assigned 100% of your shares and of your stocks, when an investor comes in and let's say your company is valued at $1 million and they put in $100,000, now they basically get 10% of that company with a post-money valuation, of course. And because of that, all other equity holders have to give up 10% of their shares. So if you own 50% of those shares, you have to give 10% up, which is 5%, and that 5% goes to the new equity holder, which is your investor. But as you can see on the chart here, the idea is as you go and as you try to raise more money, notice the difference between seed round, and a Series A. You raise more money, the valuation is higher. So although you're owning less equity as an individual, the value of that equity is worth higher because the company now had an infusion of cash and the company is valued at a higher rate. Now, we talked about different levels of investors. Angels are kind of like the standard investors, the first level investors. You need to be a registered investors. That means not everyone can be an investor, and that really protects the public. So you as an entrepreneur can't just go to an old senior housing complex and be like, oh, you should put all your retirement in this company. It's going to change your life. Different things like that. For someone to be an investor, they have to be registered. They have to have some high net worth, and they need to have some assets and some annual income in order to meet those standards to be registered as an investor. Usually angels are passionate about what they invest in, so you're going to find them involved in your day-to-day operation. You're going to find them on their team. You're going to find them rooting for you, working with you to take it to the next level. And one thing you have to understand about investments is a lot of investors know that the money they put in, probably they're going to lose it. So hopefully from the 10 deals that they make, 2 to 3 of them will be good. The other ones are going to fail, and that's okay for them because hopefully the ones that make it, they're going to make a much larger X multiplier on it than compared to the ones that actually ended up failing. Now, you take it to one step more, you have accelerators. Accelerators are basically, accelerators and incubators are basically facilities and companies that you apply for. Some of them are called, Y Combinator, Techstars, all these different accelerators. I encourage you to search one in your state, regardless of where you're located. There's a lot of accelerators popping up. And basically what they do is they invite you in. It's a short-term program, usually 3 months to 9 months, and they give you some startup funding, about $50K, maybe $20K. Some of them even offer you $100K. In exchange for that, they have a huge list of mentors, of advisors that are going to guide you through the process, take you to the next level, and from that, you're able to increase the value. Now, in exchange, they do take an equity split in your company that could range from 5% to 15%, depending on what accelerator you're working with. But you basically have a lot of really cool startups that come out of it, and a lot of the products that you use today have come out of an accelerator. For example, Airbnb or Dropbox have come out of an accelerator, and it kind of went from there. Crowdfunding, you probably have heard of Kickstarter or Indiegogo or the million other crowdfunding platforms that currently exist on the market. Crowdfunding allows you to basically not give any equity away in your company, but gather basically pre-orders. That's the way you can look at crowdfunding. If you have a product or a service or whatever it is, you can launch it to the public and the public believes in it and supports it. You can give them some early rewards for them to basically put money in early on. Now, I've heard a lot of crowdfunding campaigns that have gone south. People who put money in, they don't get any of their products because the startup was not operated right, because the financials were not managed right. And that happens. It's just like investment, but there's no equity involved in crowdfunding. Now, a seed fund is basically right before a Series A. It's basically early level, right after angels. You're looking to basically raise some money, maybe about $1 million, and it's you're getting ready to expand really big, and then you basically get to venture capital, or you might hear as VC firms. Usually they're firms where a lot of investors put money in, and that VC firms gets a lot of applications, and they allocate money and investments accordingly. So usually you can look at Sequoia Capital or any of these major venture capital firms, and you can see their performance over time. So companies that have invested in like Facebook, Uber, Airbnb, all these different VC firms have pretty high return in terms of their valuation. A lot of investors end up dumping money into those VC firms. But in terms of a VC, you can have a Series A, Series B, Series C, and so on. So you can basically raise money over time as you hit more and more goals and as you keep growing your company. The two resources that I want you to check out, Gust is a really cool website for you to check out in terms of a startup. You can see other startups that currently exist in the same field, if they're raising money, how much they're raising, or even maybe put your own company on there in order to raise money. So it's basically a platform for investors and for startups to mix and mingle and try to meet in terms of raising funding. The other one is Crunchbase.com. Use Crunchbase as a platform, as a resource to get more information about other companies who have raised money. So if you know of a competitor for you, go ahead and go on Crunchbase, type that competitor in, and it gives you a history of all the money that they've raised, where they raised it from. And I encourage you, see what kind of VC firm gave them that money. Go to a competing VC firm and say, hey, I'm doing something similar. Mine is better. Would you like to invest in me? So usually investors, the way it works is once one investor puts money in, you see a lot of other investors also dumping money in. It basically reduces the risk. If one investor sees value in it, you see other investors jumping in on the deal as well. So how do you approach investors? Where do you find investors? All these different things. Investors are best found, honestly, through connections. Accelerators and incubators and the VC funds, they get tons and tons of applications. And the way you're going to stand out is by socializing, by showing up to different groups, by meeting different people, and hopefully getting an internal recommendation of, hey, John has a great company, you should probably check it out. Usually, that's how it works. It's a lot of connection. It's a small community. So that's why I encourage you to look at Meetup, look at Eventbrite, show a lot of those groups. Now, in terms of approaching them, you want to approach as a ready person. So that's why everything that we've worked for up to this point in terms of financials, in terms of branding, in terms of product market fit, in terms of product development, market research, all these different things, your pitch deck, be ready at all times, because you might meet someone who is an investor. They're not going to, display it to you. They're not always carrying a name tag that says, hey, I'm an investor. But you might have that 30-second elevator ride, and you want to be able to pitch someone, engage with them, and tell them that story of why it's so special for you that they're going to invite you in for coffee to listen some more. I can tell you every investment that I've raised has been from a friendship, from a connection, from a mentor. So it's a lot easier to raise money that way, because again, a lot of investors don't invest in the idea because the idea could change. They invest in the person. They invest in you, in the team that you're forming, and in your ability to adjust and change and modify your company as you take it to the next level and as you go through this, the startup journey. What impresses investors is, as I said, passion, a great team, product market fit. I've had an interview with David Cohen from Techstars, and I said, what are the 5 most important things that you look for in terms of accepting someone into your accelerator or doing any investment? And he said, well, it's team, idea, and potential. Or operations. So all these different things, you can see that team is pretty important. So make sure that your team is able to take on the startup adventure and able to adjust, because you are going to pivot, you are going to change. The idea that you start with is not the idea that you're going to end up with. So just make sure that you have this awesome team that's able to go with you on this journey. What also impresses investors is the ability to show your product. So do not approach an investor and be like, oh, I have this idea. I was actually thinking about it today in the shower about like 5 minutes ago. You automatically lose their attention. You lose your shot. If you don't have an idea and you're just talking to an investor, build that friendship, build that relation. That in case whenever you have an idea or a business, you're able to approach them again and build that connection and be like, oh, well, I'm actually working on the startup now. And you already have this camaraderie with that investor. Now, the dream team usually has an operator, a hacker. If you're a tech or non-tech, we all need tech tools in order to operate our business, a designer and a hustler. So usually the hustler is the person who, trying to raise money or trying to sell or, is really a salesperson. But these are the kind of different components, and you can see on your team that you don't really need a huge team to start. You just need, people that you work well with who are passionate about the exact same cause or willing to hustle day in and day out in order to reach the goal of your business. Now, a lot of you might think that you probably heard about a business plan versus a pitch deck. Business plan is great. I encourage you not to create like an extensive 20-page business plan. I encourage you to create a short pitch deck that explains who your company is, 10 slides. And if someone is interested, if an investor is interested, then, they can take it to the next level with you. They can invite you for a meeting and you can supply additional information at that point. We will talk about pitch decks in a separate lecture and about what to include in a pitch deck and what not to include. I'm also going to give you a template of what to include in your pitch deck. Just make sure it's smooth, it flows, it tells the story that you want to share, and, it engages the investor, not really go with a 20-page business plan, because I can guarantee you no one's going to read that, at least to begin with. Now, in terms of addressing any of the questions in that pitch deck, you want to make sure that you tell them what you're doing, tell them what you've done, and tell them what you plan on doing. So it's more of a story of how you can take the business to the next level and why do you need their help financially or connection-wise. Now, in terms of a suggested structure, you can basically see here how the structure is going to operate for your business, and you can see what sort of story. Now, again, your company might have a different storyline, but I just wanted to share with you this slide to allow you to understand what sort of things you should discuss in the pitch deck that you're proposing for your startup. Now, in that pitch deck, you want to have at least one presentation that basically explains the process that you went through, what you've accomplished. It's really cool if you have some videos, but remember, if you're sending this via email as a PDF, if someone prints it out, they're not going to be able to see the video. So you want to make sure that you're communicating the message in different ways. So at least if they can't watch the video now, they can at least still read the description, see the graphics, and interact with your product. The best way to raise money is to actually show them the product, show it in action, show people using it, show demand for it. And then, once eventually you get invited to have a meeting, pitch the problem first, and just explain your passion, explain why this is important to you, explain why you and your team are the perfect team to make this happen, explain how the customers love it, and basically you're telling a story. Do not freak out about meeting an investor. You're basically sharing something that you're passionate about, something you've been working on for months now, and you're just basically sharing why this is important to you, and they buy in on that passion. Now, some of the time, majority of the times, the money that you're trying to raise is either to satisfy a purchase order in terms of product or to hire more people. Again, it depends on your company in terms of what you're trying to raise the money for. But I can tell you, majority of investors, they like to dump money into a company that's just want to basically a fuel on the fire. They're at this stage, they're a critical stage that they just want to grow, and that money is going to help them get to that point. Now, always remember, you want to make sure that your product market fit is clear, that you've reached that stage before you try to reach investors, that you're not just going to be toying around with their money. You want to have a viable products that you test, you iterate, and you test it again. You want to have a viable customer market, and you're not still testing, oh, should we go retail? Should we go online? Should we do all these different things? You're pretty much at a stage that you have some sort of operations going on, or you have at least one route that you're willing to take. This is a great video that I want you to watch. It will be included in the quiz for this section, so please make sure that you take the time to watch that. And that is all for this week's lecture. I hope that you enjoyed all the financial concepts, and I will see you next week.